Welcome to our web series. Today we'll be covering pillar 3 of our 6 pillars, which is health benefits. And I have today with me Bruce Schwartzman of Black Horse Insurance. He's a trusted resource of ConnectPay that we've been working with for the last 8 years. And today we're going to run through some questions, basically best practices on how you can drive value to your employees, discuss some different options with employee benefits practices, and leverage Bruce for all the knowledge that he has around employee benefits. I'll let you introduce yourself, please, Bruce.
Thanks, Matt. I'm Bruce Schwartzman from Black Horse Insurance. We're a insurance brokerage agency located in Winchester, Mass. We have 5 employees, and we service companies generally 50 and below. And our real specialty is working with companies that don't have a full-time benefits HR department.
Thank you for that. And so we'll dive right in. Let's get right into some of these questions. First and foremost, if you're a small business, do you need to offer health benefits to your employees?
Great question. No, actually, it depends on the size. So with the Obamacare, ACA, a lot of misunderstanding because that overruled the old mass health reform law. So before there was a mass reform law that said companies 10 and above have to offer, but Obamacare, it's 50 and above. So if you're a small company, you do not have to offer health benefits. But what we're finding is most companies either are or feel like they have to just to be competitive to attract and retain employees.
So when a company is going to go that route, needs to offer health insurance, or it's a part of their strategy to offer health insurance, how do we go about getting something like that set up?
The traditional way, which is what most companies do, is depending on the state, and we deal with, and ConnectPay deals with nationwide, we tend to focus on New England, primarily Mass, New Hampshire, and Maine. But we'll get a census, a listing of employees, and we'll get a quote from the main carriers in Massachusetts, Tufts, Harvard, Pilgrim, Blue Cross. We'll look at a bunch of companies, and then it's going to be based on the company's demographics. So really the employees, and then if they're going to offer to their families, which they can or cannot, but we usually recommend they do, we'll get quotes, and we'll get a census, dates of birth, zip code are the key factors for the employees, and we'll get quotes for many different companies, and the plans range from anywhere from, you can get a plan for, let's say, a 30-year-old, it could be $300 a month to $1,000 a month. So there's a huge spectrum in cost. So we'll work with the employer to try and figure out what's the right plan for their group and what's their budget.
As you're going through that underwriting process and evaluation process, can you talk a little bit about the different offerings across the board with employee benefits, different types of plans that you support?
One important thing is the cost. So companies will always ask, well, we want to offer benefits. What do we have to pay? And this is something we pick up a lot of groups from other brokers that they're not complying. They don't realize in Massachusetts, if you have a plan with one of the mass-based companies, a carrier has to pay at least 50% for an individual and 33% of the cost for the employee spouse, employee child, or family. And if you're not doing that as a company, you're actually violating your contract, which could have repercussions. So we come across that a lot. But the plans that are available, there's HMOs, which is where you have to see people in network. There's a PPO where you can go in or out of network. There's also plans called health savings account plans, so they're qualified for health savings accounts. And there's a lot of acronyms in the business, but one thing we do is we're really big on education. So we are educating the employer on the plans that are available. And there's a new type of plan called an ICHRA, which came out about 3 years ago, but because it was right before COVID, it's kind of been slow to take off, but we're doing a lot of these. And they're basically where a company, instead of offering one plan, here's a Blue Cross HMO 2000 plan, you give each employee a set amount of money. So based on their age. So here's $300 a month, and the employee goes out and buys a plan. And that way, and we actually help the employees buy the plan. But the beauty of that, it's got some downsides, but the beauty of that is it's instead of giving everyone a company car, and you give everyone a Honda Civic, which is a nice car, but some people may want something with four-wheel drive. Some people might want an SUV. Nowadays, most companies say, here's $300 a month, go out and get your own car. Get a lease, get a cheap car, get a really expensive, get a Cadillac or a Porsche. And you give the employee $300, $400, $500 a month. They can go out and buy a really deluxe plan if they really use it a lot, or maybe someone's really healthy and only goes to the doctor once every year. They might want to buy a less expensive plan. So that's called an ICHRA, and that's new. So we'll explore all those options with the group and kind of help find the best option for them.
And then that ICHRA, just to clarify further, is that kind of an administration of a stipend, I would call it, that's issued to the employee, and then they go to broad market them on their own?
Yes, it's exactly. So perfect. It's the employer. We help them decide how much money they're going to give, and if they're going to do it based on age, based on state, because there's different factors. And then it's getting them the money tax-free. There are some legal requirements. So that's the thing. You give them the employee money, but then the employee has to validate that they use it. The employer has to validate. So the site that we'll set up, the employee uploads a copy of their bill. But the difference is then we help the employee get the plan, because if you just tell an employee, here's $300, $400, they might be able to go out and buy a car or a flat screen TV because they're really into that, but they're not going to really be capable maybe of going out and buying a plan. So then we'll do a one-on-one to help employees actually buy a plan, and it's kind of an all-inclusive package. They click on a link and it'll bring them to a site where they can either get quotes or we can get quotes for them. And so, but an ICHRA is basically, it's an IRS law that says an employer can give an employee money tax-free, and that's the key, because an employer could always give an employee $400 a month and say go out and buy a plan, but it would be income, it would be taxed, including payroll taxes. So an ICHRA is a part of this tax code that now allows an employer to give employees money. And it's confusing because before Obamacare, employers were allowed to do that and give a stipend, but then Obamacare or ACA got rid of that, and now
and they would be taxed at that point.
They'd be taxed, and so now the Trump administration passed the ICHRA law that allows employers to give employees tax-free dollars and have it used it can be used for medical, for dental, vision, and to pay claims too.
So in summary of that, and my next question was going to be, are these plans is pre-tax available for all of these plans? It sounds like that answer is yes, across the board.
Yes, the IRS will allow, and that's one thing ConnectPay, obviously, we love working with ConnectPay because they do a great job of having the money come out pre-tax, but then they'll make sure the employer has a Section 125 plan set up, because a lot of groups that we take over, they're doing pre-tax, but they don't have the proper IRS regulations, which can lead to audits and fines and things. So we work with, ConnectPay to make sure that there's a Section 125, and actually ConnectPay is one of the payroll companies that does a nice job of setting that up for a reasonable cost. Some of the other payroll companies we come across are charging thousands of dollars a year. It's absurd. So medical, dental, vision can all be pre-tax.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And some of the, just to back up a little bit, some of the positives you mentioned in working with us, we feel the same way with working with you, is we trust you to go through all of that educational process with the individual employees, with the ICHRA, in addition to, the standard offering of plans, working with the end employer. But, you mentioned Section 125 plan. Can we spend a little bit more time on that and just talk a little bit about what that is for the audience?
So there's a few components of that tax law, but basically the first part is, let's say my employer offers me a plan, and it's going to cost me $1,000 a month for medical, and the company says we'll pay half. So the company's going to pay the full $1,000 to Blue Cross Blue Shield, we'll say. And then coming out of my paycheck every month is going to be $500. Let's say I'm paid twice a month, so $250 is going to get withheld from my paycheck. That's going to come out pre-tax, which means I'm not going to have to pay FICA, income tax, state or federal. So I'm saving 25 to 30% on taxes. And then that's the first part of the Section 125 law that allows, because basically the IRS taxes everything an employer gives an employee is taxed, unless the IRS says it isn't. So if it's not in the IRS code and I give my employee a brand new bicycle. They're gonna have to pay taxes on that unless the IRS says no, you're allowed to give an employee. So the IRS has said you're allowed to give an employee medical insurance. The other part of a Section 125 is the IRS is saying I can also give employees money for a flexible spending account, and the employee can also take money out of their paycheck pre-tax. And that's one thing that ConnectPay doesn't actually administer a flexible spending account, and that's why they've teamed up with people like myself that do. Some payroll companies will do that, and they do a terrible job at it, and they charge a lot of money for it. And so, we will set up flexible spending accounts, which is people taking money out of their paycheck and then using it to pay for deductibles, co-pays, maybe things that their medical is not covering. Let's say maybe someone's going to a therapist that doesn't accept insurance. You can run that through it. Flexible spending accounts can be used for COVID testing, feminine hygiene products. There's so many things. There's also dependent care flexible spending accounts. So I could take $5,000 out of my paycheck, put it into an account that I then pay my child care provider with, and that's going to save me 25 to 30% on that $5,000. And then there's a health savings account, which you're probably going to ask about too.
That was my next question.
Okay, yeah. So flexible spending accounts, we help set them up. They're time consuming, and we set them up, and then we work with the payroll company to say, hey, ConnectPay, take out $25 per paycheck for this employee, and it goes right into their flexible spending account.
Are you seeing a lot of clients use the health savings account for retirement versus paying those healthcare expenses?
Yes, yeah, we're starting to see more of that. The pros of a health savings account are you can take the money pre-tax, but unlike a flexible spending account where you use it or lose it, it's the employee's money, so they can put up to $7,000 for a family. It's a little higher than that now, it changes every year. But call it $7,000. They can put that into an account and either use it to reimburse themselves for deductibles, co-pays. But that money, if they don't use it, it stays in their account, it grows, they can put it into mutual funds, and then they can use it for paying medical expenses when they retire. So it's a great add-on to a 401k. And it's unlike a 401k, 401k, you either have a Roth, put the money in post-tax and then take it out pre-tax. This is the only investment vehicle that I know that you can put the money in before taxes, and then it grows tax deferred, and then you take it out and you don't pay any taxes. So it's better than a Roth, it's better than a regular 401k in that, and you can only use it for medical expenses, but let's face it, when you get 65, you're gonna have, you can use it for your premiums, so you're gonna have Medicare premiums, you're gonna have a Medicare supplement, and you're going to probably maybe be on some meds, maybe having some procedures done. So a lot of financial planners that we work with will tell their clients, put money into a 401k, but you also want to be maxing out your HSA or putting a few $1,000s into your HSA as well, and we'll help set up an HSA. The problem with HSAs, FSAs, any of these things are the education. And ConnectPay does a great job in getting them set up and making them work smoothly. And then we team up with them to do the education. How much should I put into an HSA? Is it tax deferred, tax free? Employees do not understand this, and employers don't often too. And so it's really about, we'll educate the employees. We'll do Zoom meetings when we do our presentations to the employees at open enrollment. We'll talk about them, and then we tend to do quarterly follow-ups or biannually follow-ups about making sure people are understanding how to use their flexible spending accounts and their HSAs and things.
Excellent. What things should we be ahead of when tax season rolls around for our clients?
I think with any of these accounts, it's and the companies that we team up with to run the FSAs, because we don't actually run them, we'll use a third party that will run them. They do a nice job usually sending out reminders to the employees, but we do as well. And then it's really just also making sure that, and this is where we act as the between you, the employer, and you, the payroll company, is that if an employee has a qualifying event, they all of a sudden have a baby or something happens, going through a divorce, getting married, and now they can all of a sudden put more money into their FSA because we use a site that we administer all our benefits. It's basically us letting the employee know they have a qualifying event, and then letting Connect Pay know, and that's one thing we'll do for our clients is we'll actually say, hey, this employee just signed up for $2,000 more for their FSA. We'll do the breakout and we'll let Connect Pay know. And because one nice thing about Connect Pay, we have our own, every client of ours that's with you has a rep. And we know who that rep is, and we'll deal directly with the Connect Pay rep. We'll obviously CC the employer, but again, we're working with companies that don't have someone, they have someone handling benefits and payroll, but that's not their only job. A lot of times they're answering phones, or they're doing scheduling, or they're dealing with clients as well. They wear many hats. And so we try and take as much off our employers' load, and then having the access to deal directly with Connect Pay is wonderful. And we don't have that access with a lot of the payroll companies that partly because some payroll companies want to do all the benefits. They want to try and do them all themselves. And to be honest, that's not their forte. What I like about Connect Pay, and I use them, I've been using them before I knew Drew, a long time, because we have our own rep who we can deal with, and they know payroll and they know it well. And so that's why we love teaming up with them.
I appreciate that. And another question around, how do you communicate these benefits to your employees if you're an employer on an annual basis?
Great question, and we've evolved a lot in the last few years, just like Connect Pay keeps evolving. Generally it would be an open enrollment, and we'd come in and do meetings, and we still do that, but we, about 3 years ago, invested in a benefits portal, and every group we have will set up a website, their logo on it, and there'll be a link. And a lot of our groups put it on their own website. It will say like Staff Center, and the employee will click on it, and it brings up their login, and each employee gets a login, and they can see their benefits and what they actually have enrolled in, what their cost is, and it has links to all the carriers, and whether it's a 401k, which we don't get into doing, but we'll still put that on there. Anything an employer offers, vacation schedule, holiday schedule, we'll put that all on there. We can even put a link to the payroll company to Connect Pay, so that if employees I'm not sure how to get in touch with my payroll, they, instead of going and asking HR, they just go to this one site, and there's our payroll provider, and there's the link, and then because you want the employee to be able to log in. So we use a website called Ease. It's a great site, and it was built for companies really 100 and lower. So that's their market. Ease is some of the companies, some of the websites out there that are really built for huge companies, and Ease was not, and so it's simple to use. And so we use the site. And also because of COVID now, we do a lot of one-on-ones with employees, and that's where most brokers don't do that. They sort of say, we'll talk to the HR department, but then the HR department has to educate. But again, our HR departments aren't benefits specialists or payroll specialists. So through our site, they'll click on a schedule, they'll book a meeting with either whoever their account rep is with our firm. Usually it's myself or Kelly, and we'll do a Zoom meeting with the employee. I have a few lined up later today, and we'll do one-on-ones to educate them on their benefits. But we'll also do a Zoom meeting to the whole company, or we'll come out. When I take over, when I'm meeting with a company that already has a broker and they're maybe not happy and they're looking to switch, one of the questions I ask is, when your broker comes out to present, and I usually get back, I've never met my broker, or our broker doesn't come out and present because we only have 7 employees. It's not really worth their time. We do come out or do a Zoom meeting if the company prefers. It's really up to the company to decide, but we'll do that face-to-face with the employees so that they know us, and we can answer questions like you're asking.
Thank you for that. And next question was, this is a scenario, what if your employee wants to cover a domestic partner under their health plan?
So Massachusetts says they can, and the carriers allow it. And so our site has you enter your dependents information, you put a domestic partner down, and then right away now it breaks out the fact that with a domestic partner you can put them on the plan, but the money that the company pays has to be added to their income as imputed income, and if I'm paying again 50%, the portion that I'm paying for my domestic partner, I cannot come out of my paycheck pre-tax. It has to come out of my paycheck post-tax. Most groups do not know that. Pretty much every group we take over that has domestic partner coverings does not do that. And at audit time, the employee can have to pay a lot of taxes, and the employer can get penalized too. Our site right away breaks it out, and we let the payroll company, we let you know, take this amount out pre-tax, take this amount of post-tax. And ConnectPay was one of the few companies that when they ask us that question. One thing is a company does not have to offer benefits to domestic partners. It's their decision to do that. But the IRS does not recognize domestic partners as a tax entity. So like I mentioned, everything is taxable unless the IRS says it's not.
So if you did pre-tax on a domestic partner, and you said there's some scenarios that you run into that, how far downstream does that usually get caught on audit? Is it something caught that year, or is it something that could come back and bite you 2-3 years down the road?
It could come back and bite you down the road. I've never, I'm not a tax specialist, so it'd be tough for them to actually catch it. So groups that haven't been doing it, a lot of times they'll get worried. And I said, look, you don't need to go retro back because, the past is done, but let's just get, going forward, let's get it cleaned up. And I'm sure you run...
Good faith effort.
Yeah, I'm sure you run into that a lot when you take over a payroll group. They're doing something wrong. And so you say, we're not going to go back and make you redo your taxes for the last 6 years. Let's just get it cleaned up going forward. And so that you've got history showing it's being done correctly. So that's what we focus on, is just getting them cleaned up and getting everything done.
Last question I wanted to ask you is, you have an employee, the employee terminates, they have health insurance under the plan, and can we extend that health insurance for how long, and how does COBRA work in a nutshell?
Yeah, so COBRA is federal law, but Massachusetts has a mass COBRA, mini COBRA they call it, which is basically mirrors the state, the federal law, and in even groups that don't have to comply with mass COBRA, we still recommend it. It's just good faith. And basically what it does is the employee can stay on the group plan. They have to pay 100%, but they can stay on it, and it's 18 months, and they can be extended for causes of disability. But it's just your traditional employees leaving, whether they're quitting or being fired. The only time you don't have to offer COBRA is if it's gross misconduct, and even groups that try and say that it is, I always recommend, based on lawyers I've talked to, just offer them COBRA. It doesn't cost the employer any money. But the big thing about COBRA is large companies will hire an outside COBRA administrator. It's very expensive, and they don't always do a good job. What we do is we're not COBRA administrators, but again, our clients always let us know if they've hired or fired someone. So they send us a form. If someone's been terminated, we go and look on the site and go, okay, they were enrolled in medical, they weren't enrolled in dental. COBRA is only for medical, dental, and vision. It's not for disability, life, or some of the other benefits that companies offer. We will prepare a COBRA letter. We will send it to the employer with instructions. Please email this, mail it. If you're going to hand it to them, sign it. Basically, the ways they need to get it to the employer, the employee, and then we'll say, and if the employee elects COBRA, they're going to send the form back to you, and then you collect the money. And invariably we get questions on it, but we're not actually acting as a COBRA administrator. We're being a facilitator. So the difference would be if we were the COBRA administrator, we'd send the letter directly, and it would have our name on it, and you'd say the employee would send us the money. It still runs through the employer, but we're right there holding their hand, making sure it's all done right. And then there's nothing, it doesn't really involve payroll at that point because the person's off. Although we do have groups that will terminate someone and say, we've promised them we're going to keep their medical in force for 6 months. And they don't realize they can't do that. They can't just leave them on the plan. What they're really saying is we're going to offer them COBRA, but we're going to agree to pay for COBRA for 6 months. And in that case, we'll advise them of that, and we'll do a cover page on the letter saying that, yeah, while you're on COBRA now, the company's going to pay for the first 6 months. So we'll walk them through that. And we've had groups that even say we're going to keep paying a person for 6 months, and we're going to cover their medical, and then we'll work with payroll, you guys, to make sure that's done correctly.
So in these scenarios, you talk about this 6 month time frame. Generally, the employer is paying their portion continued, and the employee is paying their portion continued? Or is there variation?
Variation. Well, so normally with COBRA, someone leaves. With any medical plan, you have, when you sign up for the medical plan, there's a bunch of questions that are asked. if someone terminates, do you want the coverage to terminate on their last day of work, or do you want it to go to the end of the month? It's obviously an employer's decision. We always recommend going to the end of the month, and we get into some reasons why. But so once the employee's off the medical plan, then the COBRA part, it's all the employee has to pay 100%, and you can even charge them 2% load for administrative costs, because there's some work involved because of the check. But if a company does want to keep covering some of that because of the severance agreement, we see it, like you said, sometimes a company will pay 100%, sometimes they'll say we're only going to pay the 60%. It just depends on if they're paying the person's salary. If they're paying them salary, what normally happens, they'll say, we're going to pay you a salary, we're going to keep deducting your portion. If they're not paying the employee, a lot of times part of the severance package is you're done today, we're not going to pay you anymore, but we are going to keep your medical and we're going to cover 100% of it for the next 3 months or 4 months or whatever the severance agreement is.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You clarified some things for me.
Yeah.
And that about wraps it up, unless there's anything over and above you'd like to share, or maybe we may have missed in the questioning.
I think the only thing you made, you asked a lot of questions that were very detailed. And the one thing, we have a lot of companies that will come to us that they don't offer any benefits, and now they're getting requests, so they're starting to think about it. And we'll kind of walk them through if they should offer them or not, because sometimes it's better not to offer them, because it does open up a lot of work. But what we explain to groups is if you are going to offer benefits, groups have to realize that the broker generally doesn't, when you hire someone new, the broker, it's up to usually the employer to get the person signed up. And like we have groups that have medical, Blue Cross, Delta Dental, they have LTD with Unum, disability with Standard, they are mass paid for medical leave. They have to take that employee's information, log into 6 different websites and type in all their information. And it's time consuming and a lot of room for error, and if they forget to do it, we handle that for all our groups now. We used to not, we used to be like a traditional broker, but we're more of a broker / admin again, because to take that burden off our employers so that they can focus on architecture, veterinarians, construction, whatever type of business they're in. And just like you, ConnectPay, they have a rep, because some of these payroll companies are all online, and I have some groups I take over that use them, and I try and shift them, because I say, it's great for when everything's running smooth, but as soon as you have imputed income, or you have to do something a little different, or a severance package, how do you do that? Well, now you're on the phone for an hour and a half trying to get someone, is where with like a ConnectPay or a Black Horse Insurance, you pick up the phone and you call Matt, you call Kelly, you call Steve, Judy, you got a name, someone to call who will get back to you and answer your questions. And that's why I really like our relationship. I've been approached by other payroll companies, and I'm like, no, I want to deal with someone that focuses on 15 and below, and wants to really hold their hand and take people through the process and educate them.
We appreciate that. We've enjoyed working with you through the years, and I couldn't have said it any better. The reason that we're partnered with you folks is your service model is in perfect alignment with ours, and we are very confident that you're going to do a much better job with employee benefits for our clients than if we were to try to take that service in-house. So enjoy working with you, and that's it. So in addition, you can download our connected guide to the 6 pillars of payroll online. A lot of the material in there will cover what Bruce and I had just discussed, and look forward to seeing you next time.